everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, or welcome if you are new here. I am going to be filming today a motherhood Q&A on being a mum of two for a whole year. My little girl turned 1 yesterday. I literally cannot believe it. It's flashed before my eyes. I feel like she was just this tiny newborn baby and then suddenly she's now like a toddler. Like, she's been walking for nearly 2 months. She's everywhere. She's trying to talk. She's just so active. She's so cheeky. Tall. She's got really big feet. I don't know where she gets them from because I'm only a size 4. But yeah, I just thought I would do an honest motherhood Q&A on being a mum of 2 for a year, because I know that people love my motherhood Q&As and I just thought it was a good time to do it. I've just made myself a fresh coffee, but I was going to say I feel like it's not that warm. It's not that warm, but oh well. And I've just got a jar of chocolate digestives. I've just been to the Aldi toy sale and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to buy some digestives for this video, because I absolutely love chocolate digestives. I'm just going to jump straight into it. Hopefully I don't waffle on too much, although I can imagine that I probably will, because that is just who I am and I could talk about this stuff for hours and hours and hours. I didn't get loads of questions, which actually is good, but sometimes I get far too many and I do not know what to do with myself, and a lot of them cross over. And then it's like really hard work to try and work out what's crossed over and what hasn't. Do you feel back to you more now Indy's mum? So 100%. I don't think mums will ever feel back to themselves, because they never will be the person that they were before they had kids. So I think because you always have that comparison in the back of your mind, it's hard, I think, to ever feel fully like settled within yourself and fully like, I don't know, fully feel like you. But I definitely feel like I've got more of a personality again. I feel like sometimes when you have a baby you just like fully lose your personality. Like, I am a very positive person. I'm a very, you know, my cup is always half full instead of half empty, and I found that becoming a mum made me a bit more the opposite, because I just did not have time to think positive, as silly as that sounds. And then when I had Indy, I was even worse. Like, I just found myself moaning all the time, like texting my friends in the WhatsApp group moaning, and I'm thinking, Sophie, why are you moaning so much? Like, you never used to moan this much. But it'd just be about little things and I'm like, why am I even telling anyone? Like, what happened to like that positive person that I used to be? But I'm definitely becoming more that person, like finding time for like to-do lists, getting stuff done around the house. And I think those first weeks, months of having a newborn, you are just very lost in the newborn bubble, and there's nappies everywhere, like the house is upside down, there's loads of washing to do because you can't catch up on it, because like you'll miss a wash load or you'll miss putting washing out, so then you have to wash it again because you're just so wrapped up in this baby, which is how you are meant to be, because it literally disappears before your eyes. And I kind of regret rushing Indy so much. Like, I feel like I put her down all the time because I just thought, I've got stuff to do, you're gonna have to be put down, and I don't need to become clingy, so you're gonna have to be put down. Like, you need to get used to it. And it does make me quite sad looking back, but it's just how I dealt with it at the time. But yeah, I definitely feel more myself. Obviously I'm going back to the gym as well, and just gradually doing little things for myself. Like, each time you go out with friends, each time you go on a date night, each time you know, go to the gym, each time you start a new fitness class, each time you go on a run, each time you go on a walk alone, I feel like you're gradually becoming more of who you were before. Next one is, in fact there's a lot like this, so I'm going to answer this one. I'm scared to have a second. First is a handful. When did it start to get easier with 2? Like others, hardest part about adjusting from 1 to 2. Expecting my second, scared I won't be able to cope. It's just one of them things that you just have to deal with. Like, you have to do it. You have no other option. And no one's gonna die. This is one thing I actually told myself when I was in like the thick of it with Casper and Indy, and Josh was working late nights and I was trying to get them both to bed, or it was like a Friday and it had been a long week. Casper had not been at nursery for like 3 days, and it was just all getting a lot. I would literally sit there and tell myself, nobody's dying, we are all okay, we are all gonna survive, like it's doable. People have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids, like this is doable. That is what I would tell myself. But things that helped me survive would be 100% asking for help, whether that's from your partner, your friends, your mum and dad, your parents, your grandparents, your aunties, your uncles. Like just asking for help when you need it. A few times I had to ask my mum to have Casper overnight because I found him really hard work. Like he took to Indy quite badly at first. He was just such a young boy. He was 2 years old. Like he'd literally just turned 2. Bless him. And his whole world just basically turned upside down. But when you've then just had a baby and your hormones are everywhere, like it's just so hard to deal with. I feel like if you just gave birth and then your body was exactly the same as it was before you got pregnant, you would actually deal with it a lot better. But because of all the hormones, but I wouldn't say it's impossible. Like I've done it now, like I've come out the other side. I'd never actually found the 2 kids that difficult. The things I hated the most were the evenings, bath and bed. Mornings I didn't mind because India was a really good sleeper, bless her, and she slept in the snuzz pod on her own upstairs while I'd bring Casper down and have breakfast. Or she'd kind of like just be asleep in the Moses basket. And it's just everything else, like the washing, the cleaning, like just trying to keep on top of everything. And then I think when you have one, you get used to them going to bed and you're having your evenings and watching TV and getting stuff done, and then you suddenly have this newborn again and you're like, wow, I don't have an evening anymore. Like the baby stays with you until, you know, 10, 11 o'clock at night. There's not really anything as like a pamper night anymore when you're in that newborn bubble. But it's just knowing that you come out the other side. Like Casper was a massive handful, and to be honest he still is a handful, and Indy is a handful. Like Indy she's just everywhere. Like we need eyes in the back of our head, at the side of our head, like on top of our head. She is everywhere, and she's also getting very, very clingy. She wants picking up all the time. I can't comment on her, I mean she's crazy, but she's not talking yet. Whereas Casper's quite controlling. He always shouts at you for turning the light on because he wants to do it. He wants to get the milk out the fridge. He wants to shut the fridge door. He wants to put the toast in the toaster. Like he wants to do everything. And that is the thing that I find the hardest, because sometimes I just don't have the patience for it, especially if I'm trying to sort something for Indy and he's screaming at me because I've shut the fridge door and I've not let him do it even though he's nowhere near the fridge. So they both have their moments, but I think all kids do, and I just think I have 2 children with quite big personalities. I feel like I'm waffling on. I don't even know where this question's going. Yeah, so first the handful, when it starts to get easier. It definitely gets easier around 6-month mark, I would say. Someone said as well, has it, I feel like I'm coping better than I thought. Does it get harder, or is newborn and toddler the hardest? So to answer this question, I would say newborn and toddler is a little bit easier than the middle, but then it's got easier again. So I would say when Indy was heading to about 4, 5, 6 months, it started to get hard because Casper was more aware of her. This is when his behaviour got really bad as well, because he realised that she was actually like a living thing, and she moved, she rolled over, she babbled. Like she was an actual thing rather than just a doll that slept. And trying to put her to bed, because she was no longer at that point where she could just sit on Casper's bed with me because she was like this tiny little 3-week-old, or she was no longer sleeping for like 3 hours at 7 o'clock, and it didn't matter because newborns sleep all the time anyway. She was kind of getting into a routine of needing to go to bed at like 7, but Casper went to bed at 7, and being at home on my own, it was difficult. But if you have your partner at home with you every night, then I would say that it probably doesn't get any harder. It's probably just the adjustment of newborn and toddler life that's hard. it just got harder for me because Josh was working till 8, 9 o'clock 3 or 4 nights a week, and I was still having to put them both to bed on my own, having to go and get Casper from nursery with screaming newborn in the car. Sometimes I'd leave her in the car if she was asleep. If she was screaming, I'd obviously have to get her out, like carrying her in the dark in like the middle of December in this car seat, like January, February, the pissing down rain. That was difficult, and I had no other option but to obviously bring her with me because I couldn't leave her at home and Josh wasn't here. And then like getting in, it's dark, trying to give Casper his tea, trying to give Indy some milk, then thinking about bath and bed, then trying to get Casper to sleep, trying to get Indy to sleep. Then I went through a phase of putting Indy down first so that I could sit with Casper, but obviously she wouldn't go down as straight away. So some nights I'd be there thinking, yeah, she's asleep, 5 minutes later she'd be screaming, and then Casper would want me. And I would say that was the hardest phase for me, was between like 3 and 6/7 months. Now she goes to bed pretty well, and even if she has to cry for 5 minutes, I'm not too bothered because she's an older baby and she's more aware of her surroundings, whereas when she was obviously like really small, I felt awful leaving her to cry even for like a minute. Whereas now she sometimes will settle after a few minutes and just find a dummy again and just go back to sleep. And Casper is a lot more aware of her as well. Like, I used to have to ask Casper to leave the room and he wouldn't. He would just be in her room making loads of noise or trying to get her to sleep, and that would obviously really trigger me and frustrate me. But now he's really good. Like, he will leave me alone basically. He will either sit and watch TV or he will be upstairs, but he'll just be pottering around silently, or he'll be helping me find dummies or helping me find teddies for Indy. So I would say, like, yeah, if you're coping well, then that's absolutely great, hun. And just stay positive that you're going to keep coping well, because not everyone finds it difficult. Some people find 1 to 2 harder than 2 to 3. Some people find 0 to 1 harder than 1 to 2. And that is my next question. What was harder, 0 to 1 or 1 to 2? For me, 100% it was 1 to 2. The first few weeks, I would say it didn't feel that different at first. But then, yeah, it obviously did get harder. But I found 0 to 1 really easy, whereas some people find it really difficult. Casper was a really easy baby. It was lockdown. Like, we didn't have any pressure to go anywhere. I didn't really have any pressure to work. I was getting the government grants because I was self-employed. Like, I didn't really have to worry about money. I didn't have to rush myself to get back to work. Like, he was a chilled baby. He was just this happy little soul, and I just honestly found 0 to 1 really easy. I just feel like Casper really slotted into our lives like so well. I was never worried to go anywhere. Like, I took him everywhere with me. Whereas 2 kids is harder to get around. It's harder to get out of the house. It's harder to do anything because you've got 2 rather than 1. You've got 2 hands, but you've got 2 children. But yeah, I found 1 to 2 harder than 0 to 1. But as I say, I found 0 to 1 really hard, really easy. So if you found 0 to 1 quite hard, you might not find 1 to 2 that hard. Like, everyone is so different. Like, one of my friends, she found 0 to 1 really, really difficult. But she might not find 1 to 2 difficult. Like, it's just one of them things that I don't think I had any kind of postnatal depression or anything after Casper either, because I just didn't have the pressure because it was lockdown. And I actually really am glad that my first pregnancy was in lockdown. I think it was a blessing in disguise. I really do. I just think there was not really any pressure for anything, and it was just quite a nice life, to be honest. So 2 quite similar questions here. How was a C-section and a toddler, and what happened for your birth to go Pete Tong? Because when it was Indy's birthday yesterday, I put a photo of myself in labour saying before it all went Pete Tong. Didn't really go Pete Tong, just went a bit wild. So I'll answer them both at the same time. Firstly, I didn't actually have a C-section. I had an emergency C-section with my little boy, and then I booked a C-section for my little girl 2 days before her due date. And no, I booked it 3 days before her due date for her due date, and she came the day after that. I always wanted a VBAC, but then I started to get closer to my due date. I didn't really want to go over because I'd had a previous C-section, and I didn't want to be induced because I was induced with Casper, and it's just not something that I wanted at all. But then I didn't want to get to 41 weeks without having a baby, and definitely didn't want to be induced at 41 weeks. So I had this really panicky thought. I was absolutely massive. I was so uncomfortable. I was absolutely sick to death of being pregnant. Rang my consultant, booked a C-section. Anyway, I think that made me relax. She came the day after. I got to the hospital for my pre-op assessment because my C-section was the following 2 days after. And when I got there, I said, I actually do think I could be in labour. Like, I am having twinges and like mild contractions. But then as I was there, they were getting worse. And to be honest, the midwife was really rude to me down in the antenatal ward. And she was like, well, there's no point doing your... No, she did my pre-op assessment because it's literally just taking your bloods and stuff. Blood pressure and like, I can't remember what else I had to do. Urine, I think maybe. And she was like, well, I'm going to send you up to labour triage because there's no point me looking at you and then having to send you up there anyway, but they'll probably send you downstairs, back downstairs. Went up there, went in, said, I think I'm in labour. Even within 10-15 minutes of like getting up there, I felt a lot worse than what I felt the 20 minutes previous to arriving. At this point, Josh was still at work. I told him that I was fine. I was going for my pre-op assessment. I thought I could be potentially in labour, but I'll find out when I get there. That's what I said to him. No point in leaving work because it could all just be a lie. You know, it's 2 days before my due date, so I'm not like holding on to any hopes. I'd had loads of Braxton Hicks, loads of like false labour starts. Anyway, she checked me over and I was 4 centimetres dilated. She obviously then did something to me like a stretch or sweep without me even realising, because within half an hour I was stood up with my comb. I didn't even put my leggings back on. I physically could not put my leggings back on. I text Josh saying, I'm 4 centimetres, think you better get here. By the time Josh arrived, it was about 25 minutes later. Wow, like shit hit the fan basically. I was ready to push. I was screaming like, Josh, I really need to push. You're gonna have to go and get someone. They came, just saw the state of me and was like, right, we need to get this girl to labour ward. Got me on the labour ward. I was 10 centimetres. So I went from 4 centimetres to 10 centimetres in like less than an hour. And I think it was just like I wasn't expecting it at all. And it just really like knocked me by surprise. And I know it's not even that fast. Some people give birth within that time frame. But for me, it was fast, especially because like I'd had nothing to help me do that. And because I was induced with Casper, like I just wasn't expecting it at all. I could even see the pool and I was just like, I can't get in. Like I physically want a water birth, but the thought of moving, I just cannot do it. So I then was at 10 centimetres for hours. At this point it was like 4:30 and India was born at nearly 8:30. So I was 10 centimetres for a good 4 hours. The pushing was really difficult. She didn't come out and I basically had to have a ventouse delivery and episiotomy. So I didn't have a C-section with a toddler, but I personally found my afterbirth worse than a C-section. And I don't want to put anyone off who's either never given birth before or is heading for a VBAC, because I'm glad I got my VBAC. Like the emotionalness of it was what I wanted. Like that's what I missed from my C-section. But the pain for a good 2 weeks after was awful. I had really bad piles. They were absolutely massive. They were like plums. I had this cut on my vagina. Like that whole area was so sore. I couldn't sit down. It was on my mind constantly. And then you have your after labour pains. They get worse with every birth that you have. So they're basically like, it's your uterus contracting back in. And it's like, it's false labour pains. And yeah, apparently it gets worse with every single child that you have. And wow, that teamed with the pain in my bum and my vagina, and then the breastfeeding pain of just the full swollen milky boobs. I have never been in so much pain in my life. Honestly, I'm not joking. By day 4, I actually felt like I could die. Like that is how bad I felt. I felt worse than when I was in labour, and I think that is a part of that is really what contributed to me having like some sort of birth trauma, because the week following that birth I was just in so much pain. Like my body hurt from head to toe. I had horrendous DOMs in my chest, my shoulders, my arms from pushing so much. Like my muscles were just aching everywhere. But yeah, I don't want to put anyone off, it's just my reality. I just had a really bad afterbirth and it was just horrific. So I would have, at that point, I would have actually preferred my C-section pain with a toddler than the pain that I was in, because I felt like I couldn't play with him. I felt like I couldn't get on the floor. I felt like I couldn't do anything. So that is that. 2 more questions that are very similar. When does it get easier mentally? And when did you feel like you actually had this down, if ever? Asking for a friend. Upside down smiley face. I would say by, just not that long ago actually, I would say by 8-9 months I started to feel like, right, I can do this. The first few weeks actually, even though I was in a lot of pain, I'd say by week 2 I was getting out of the house, I was going to soft play with a baby and a toddler, and because Indy was in that phase of like sleeping all the time, like it was just quite easy and quite chilled in the daytime. And then it got a little bit harder because she was kind of moving, she wouldn't sleep that much, I couldn't really leave her anywhere. She doesn't really like the pram, she still doesn't now. But I would say mentally I found it easy by 9 months, but that is because, like I've said in previous videos, like I just really had to fight for it. Like I had to put myself out of that position, and I had to start writing to-do lists, I had to start sorting my house out, I had to start doing things that I knew mentally would make me feel better. I had to join a gym, I had to go walking, I had to exercise, I had to go out with my friends. Like I just did as many things as I could that I knew would help me mentally to basically get myself out of that state. Like to this day, I don't know if I had postnatal depression. I think 80% of women probably get some form of postnatal depression when they have a baby. I don't know if it was just birth trauma. Like I don't know what it was, but I had to fight to make myself feel better. You know, having a better diet, exercising, getting outdoors, going out with friends, having chilled nights on the sofa watching TV, making sure the house is tidy. Not all the time, I do not have a tidy house. If you could see the state of my house right now, in fact what I'm going to do is I'm just going to video it on my phone and attach this footage too. So that's you, hello. I actually accidentally deleted this footage off my phone, but I couldn't then remove this footage because it just didn't add up on my video. But yeah, the house was honestly a complete mess. But my idea is that I'm going to clean it all up after I've filmed this video, and then I'm going to sit down and watch a film, and that is going to be the rest of my day. So it's trying not to feel guilty for having moments to yourself. Like the kids are at my mum's on a Thursday because they always are. I'm either working in the shoe shop or I'm here at home working with clients in the gym doing content. And today I've decided that after I've filmed this, I'm going to tidy the house a bit so I feel better, because it always makes me feel better when the house is tidy. And I'm going to sit and watch a film, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm not going to feel bad that my mum's got the kids and that I'm watching a film, because I never get that time. I hardly ever watch TV. I never watch what I want on TV, even on a night, because by the time I've got Casper to bed, I've come downstairs, I've unloaded the dishwasher, I've washed bottles, I've done this, I've done that. It's 8 o'clock and then Josh is ready to sit down, and Josh doesn't want to watch Married at First Sight. Josh doesn't want to watch Made in Chelsea. Like, I hardly ever watch my things on TV. So I'm going to treat myself to a film this afternoon. And I think it's just things like that. Mentally you have to fight to get out of it. And asking you if you have this shit down, if ever, definitely felt better again by 9 months. But also I just feel like I don't think maybe you ever really do, and just knowing that probably actually makes you feel a little bit better, and knowing that no one else does as well makes you feel a little bit better. I think if you're surrounded by people as well that lie about how easy motherhood is, and I'm not saying everyone lies, actually, that sounded really bad. I'm not saying everyone lies about how easy motherhood is, but I know some people find motherhood a lot easier than others. But I do think that depends on what kind of children they have. I feel like if I had 2 really placid children that were just happy to do whatever I said, and they were really easygoing, and they just let me get them dressed, and you know, they just watch anything on TV for half an hour, they just go off and play on their own, They never really shouted, they never really, because some children like this do exist, I've seen them, then I would find motherhood really easy. Like, I know I would. It's all I ever wanted. But from the thing that I did not expect from motherhood is having a child that backchats, or having a child that wants to do everything for themselves, and how triggered I am by that. Like, when you're 16, 17, 18, dreaming of becoming a mum one day, I feel like you never think that you will lose your cool or you'll be triggered by anything. And I think that's what I find the hardest about motherhood, is being triggered by so many little things that I never even imagined. I used to think that being a mother, like becoming a mum, was like the biggest dream in the world. And it is, of course it is. But I used to just think it'd be like sunshine and rainbows all the time, because I'd love my kids would love me, would just go and do loads of cool things. But I never imagined how much my kids would trigger me, like how much it would irritate me just like not getting dressed, even though I've asked you like 30 times. But if I get you dressed, you take your clothes off. Like, it's little things like that that I think I find the hardest about motherhood. But yeah, I feel like if you have people in your life that are honest about motherhood as well, it does make it a lot easier. Honestly, how is it being a mum of two? How do you find the age gap? So I do absolutely love being a mum of two. I actually prefer it to being a mum of one, even though I say it's harder. I feel like we have a lot more fun in the house. I feel like, you know, Casper's a bit more entertained than he was when he was an only child, because he's always got Indy there. I feel like I can get more stuff done now that Indy is older and they will go off and play together. Whereas when Casper was an only child, he would not do anything on his own. He would never play on his own. He would never go in the playroom on his own. He wanted you everywhere. Like, he does it now when Indy's not here. Like, he follows you around like a little lapdog. Whereas when Indy is here, he is a lot more like independent to himself, because Indy's also playing. The age gap is, it was hard because Cass was still just a little baby, but then I also think people do a lot younger age gaps, and I feel like if I'd have left it much longer, maybe they would have been a bit too different, especially with them being different sexes. I don't really know. The age gap, I'm glad it happened the way it did, because I just feel like they are really the best of friends. Don't get me wrong, they do argue like cat and dog sometimes. And Casper does get really annoyed because he doesn't understand that Indy doesn't yet understand anything. But he does really well. Like, he's really protective of her. He does love her to pieces. He's always trying to help. And yeah, I'm glad that the age gap was just over 2 years. I feel like it definitely worked out for the better. Right, I'm just going to answer 2 more because my battery is dying. I've tried to leave this till near the end because there was quite a few people that asked this. Would you ever consider having another child, or will you wait till Casper is older, / will you have any more children? By the way, you are a fab mum. Thank you so much. I am very 50-50. I always wanted 3 children. Before I had any children, I always used to say to everyone, I want 3 children. I used to actually say that I wanted 3 boys. Like, that was like my childhood dream, was having 3 boys. I feel like I grew up with a lot of boys. Both of my cousins that live closer to us are boys, so we spent a lot of time in the summer holidays. Obviously, I've got a brother, so I was always the only girl. My mum used to be a leader for Cubs, so the local Cubs in the village, my mum was a Cubs leader. Like, it was a volunteer thing. And my dad used to work in America, he used to work in Japan, like, he used to work away. So I had to go with my mum every Thursday night to Cubs. When I was like from the age of like 5, 6, so I was then surrounded by lots of boys. I always went on Cub Scout camps. Like, my next door neighbours were 2 boys and a girl, but the girl was a bit younger than me, so she didn't play out until probably, we lived there maybe 4 years before she was even allowed to play out. I just feel like I was surrounded by a lot of boys growing up, and then it made me really want boys. I always said I wanted 3 boys. Anyway, getting to the point, do I want any more children? I actually think it's a harder decision than some people maybe make out. I think some people think, yeah, I want a 3rd, I'm just going to go for it. But I'm trying to think of like the logistics. Like, 2 children is like that perfect family of, you've got a car that fits 4 people in it easily. Holidays are designed for 4 people. Like rows of airplanes in the middle, they've got 4 seats in the middle. That's where they put families, or the 2x2, depending on what size airplane you get on. Nursery bills, you know, Indy's an October baby, so we're going to have an extra year on top of what we've paid for Casper for nursery bills. Holiday prices, just getting out of the house. Like when I'm on my own and Josh is working, the thought of getting 3 children out of the house is just like, how would I even do that? But deep down, I would love a 3rd child, yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like I always imagined myself being a family of 5, a family of 3 children. Like financially right now, I feel like we would manage, but then it's, would we have to sacrifice things like really nice holidays? You know, we'd love to take the kids to Florida. We've said like 2027. If we would have a 3rd, would that sort of hold that back? Like would there be any point going, depending on what age the 3rd child was? I also really dislike being pregnant. I absolutely hate it. When I was pregnant with Indy, I remember being sat on the toilet at about 39 weeks and I was in false labour. My battery's gonna die, so I'm gonna have to film on my phone when it dies. I remember being in like false labour, sat on the toilet thinking, remember this moment and how much pain / unenjoyment you are having right now, and remind yourself if you ever consider doing this again. And I literally can put myself there. Like I remember that moment so clearly, but then I'm just like, would I regret it? If I don't have a 3rd, am I going to regret this decision? Like Casper goes swimming, gymnastics, we're soon going to be introducing these things to Indy, and then if it was a 3rd, like how do we even do that with 3 children? I know Casper will be at school by the time we'd have a 3rd, whether it was next year or the year after. Casper would definitely be at school, so we wouldn't have to consider like weekly, like midweek swimming / gymnastics. But, and I'm not saying if you don't do extracurricular with your children that it's a bad thing, but we just are those parents, like we want to do extracurricular activities with our children. And would a 3rd child affect that? Like would we be able to do that with 3 children? I just think there's a lot more to thinking about a 3rd child than just thinking, yeah, I want a 3rd child, for us personally as a family. And Josh is very much finished. He thinks we've got 1 of each, you know, you can't ask for much more. Indy brought a lot of joy to our lives like Casper did. Would a 3rd really do that? I just don't know. I really do not know. I couldn't tell you. I feel like it's just gonna be one of them things, maybe, that if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it's not meant to be. I don't know. We'll have to see. Josh might change his mind in a year. He might change his mind in 2 years. It's a very difficult thing. What's it like having a boy and girl? Not much different. I do not see sex as any different, to be honest. I think Indy is just as boisterous as Casper. She's clingy, he was clingy. They're both quite similar, to be honest. They've both got very similar personalities from what I can see, like, starting to happen. It's nice to obviously dress her in like little girly clothes and pink, but she might not be like that way forever. She might not like that forever. It's cute to have like little dolls and stuff lying around, but again, she might not be into that forever. But yeah, I actually just don't find girls and boys that different right now. I feel like my 2 are quite similar. The last question before my battery dies is childcare bills. Obviously Casper's on his 33 hours now. He only does 2 full days anyway, so that means that his nursery bills are less than £200 a month, which is fantastic. Indy does 2 half days, and so yeah, our childcare bills are not loads. We went through a period of them being quite a lot before Casper got his 33 hours, but we knew for a period that was going to be like a lot, and we just had to suck it out for a few months. We just had to suck it up for a few months and just know that by September things were going to change. I don't think I'll put Indy in any longer days until Casper starts school now. Just 1, from a childcare standpoint, and 2, because I still enjoy those afternoons off with her, even though I've got so much to do and I could do a lot more things. She obviously doesn't have the time with me that Casper ever had, because he had a full year at home with me every single day of the week. whereas Indy's never really had that. So I do enjoy those afternoons off with her, and I still try and get out of the house and get things done with her. But we are quite lucky in that we don't have massive financial struggles, which I know that's probably quite a trigger, maybe a bit of a trigger warning. I personally struggle financially right now. Like, I have less money than ever since having 2 children, but as a family as a whole, we really do not worry about money. You know, we can pay our bills, we can put food on the table, we can still go on holiday, we can still save money, we can still put money in a pension. I just feel personally like that I don't have that much money, because I don't. Like, I ask Josh for money pretty much once or twice a month, and I hate doing it, but I have to do it. But Josh works really hard, he works really long hours, and he just works hard to provide for our family. And sorry ladies, my battery died. What I'm gonna do is just quickly answer a few more questions, because since I filmed this, a few questions have come through that I feel like I just want to answer. I've got the cooker hood on over there, so I don't really want to film where I was before, so I'm just going to pop you there. So a lot of people have said, right, so what I was saying before my camera died, I think we were just saying that basically Josh works really hard, he works really long hours, and it pays off, and we are just, right now we are comfortable, and I know that we are lucky, but also we create our own looking life. And I know obviously there's a lot of factors that can affect your look, but on a whole, like the average Joe, you do create your own looking life. You know, 5 years ago Josh was not self-employed, and he got made redundant, and it was a really difficult time. And now when I look back, I just think it really was a blessing in disguise. But anyway, so quickly, a lot of people have just said, so this one here, what was the newborn days like overall with the toddler? Please be brutally honest. Kind of what I was saying earlier in the video, like, it is hard, but it is survivable. Like, it's not hell on earth. Like, it is what you always dreamed of, and if you have always longed for a family, then it's what you wanted. So it's survivable. Like, I just think every day we progress as parents, we adapt as parents, you know, like, you learn new things every single day, and it's just learning to stay calm as much as possible with your toddler, giving your toddler one-to-one time as much as possible. I feel like I kind of wish Cass was a little bit older, in a sense that, like, this weekend for example, we're going to have a movie night with him on Saturday night and get some popcorn and some chocolates, and he's gonna, well, we're gonna watch Chocolate Factory, like we've already told him about it. He's really excited. We've said, you know, Indy's gonna go to bed, and I kind of wish we could have done that with him when he was 2, which I guess we could have done, but he just wouldn't have done it as well, because he was just too young. He needed to go to bed at a certain time, like, he was tired. His sleep as well was horrific when Indy was born. Like, his sleep was so bad, he was getting up like 5 times a night. So his attitude in the day obviously reflected from his lack of sleep, and then he needed to go to bed because, wow, he wasn't sleeping. But it's spending one-to-one time. We noticed that if we spent more time with him and Indy was looked after by other people, he was much better. But it is survivable. Like, you can do it. Again, how hard is the transition from 1 to 2? It's not really hard. Like, it's not like, oh my god, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. It's just adapting to more than one life to look after. Like, you're not just looking after one child, you're now looking after 2 children, and they need different things at different times. That's why it gets easier, because now they both have their lunch together, they both have their tea together, they both go in the bath together. But when they were like a completely different age, that doesn't happen. You know, I couldn't really bath Indy with Casper unless Josh was there. Obviously she's not having a tea, she's not going to the bed at the same time as him, whereas now they pretty much do everything at the same time. But yeah, it's just basically like having one child but having 2. You know, like when you have one child and you're, you know, you have a bit of time away, you're like, wow, I really needed this. It's a bit like when you have 2 children, then you have one, you're like, wow, this is easy, I've only got one today. Like, that is basically a similar, like, what do you call it? That's how I would describe it. It's like going from 1 to 0. It's going from 2 to 1. Like, that feeling of like, wow, there's no kids here, you know, breathe. When you've got just one child, that's how you feel. Last one I'm going to answer. How do you find time to do everything and not feel an anxious, angry, irritated mess? I do not find the time to do everything. I probably put far too much on my plate, to be honest. I obviously do all the washing and the tidying up. We do have a cleaner, but she comes once every 2 weeks, but she just does the main things like deep cleans the bathrooms and the kitchen, and like mops the floor. But I do all the washing, I put in the washing away, I pretty much do all the cleaning. Cooking is very 50-50, like I will do some cooking, Josh will do some cooking. I work 2 days a week at Acorn and Pip, the shop. I do YouTube videos, I do content for Instagram, I have a few PT sessions, I also try to look after 2 children. Like, I do a lot, I do put a lot on my plate, and I am anxious a lot. Like, I still have a really irrational fear of one of the kids dying. I think about it all the time, it's awful. And I never used to be like that when I just had one child. Angry, probably get really angry like once a week, and I absolutely hate myself for it when I've had that like urge of anger. I try really hard not to. I feel like every time I do it, I'm learning to channel my anger more. It still doesn't like make me feel any less guilty. Like, I still feel absolutely awful if I've lost my rag and shouted and screamed and, you know, stormed off. But I feel like gradually that does get better and better. Irritated, I only really get irritated when the house is upside down, which is a lot, to be fair, because our house is upside down a lot. But I'm not a massive clean freak at all, but I do find myself getting irritated when there's mess around. So I do try to keep on top of it as much as possible. Like, clutter, it's just been Indy's birthday, so there is stuff everywhere. Like, I'm just looking at it now thinking, oh my god, and I've literally got to get the kids in like 10 minutes. So I don't have time to sort it. I'm gonna have to sort it when they're in bed. But I think part of me is just like, I know it will get sorted. Like, even if I can't do it right now, I'll do it tonight. Or even if I can't do it tonight, I'll do it tomorrow. Like, and I just think sometimes you just have to put things into perspective. Like, right now, there are literally people dying every minute of the day. Like, getting bombed, getting kidnapped, getting the heads chopped off, and people fleeing from their homes with families and nowhere to go, and in floods, and have no food and have no water. And I just think that is a million times worse position to be in than me sat here right now looking at all this stuff thinking it needs hiding away. And Josh is very good like that as well. I mean, he's a bit of a messy person, but if I ever like get really like annoyed at him, he's just like, Sophie, no one's dying, does it really matter? And I'm like, yes it does, but in the grand scheme of things, no it doesn't matter at all. So I think it's just trying to like put it into perspective of that mess means that you have a loving home and a place to put things, and you know, you've let your children have fun. And I know it's really irritating and it can make your mood a lot worse, but it's just trying to like get out of that zone and just kind of be like, right, this is really not the end of the world, because it isn't. But yeah, thank you for watching. I really don't want to ramble on. I didn't want to make this video long, but I think it's going to be about 45 minutes. That's fantastic. But yeah, thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you all real soon. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button as well, and I'll see you guys soon.